Hello, everyone. Welcome to IPSI's live forum on Israel, Africa, and Black America. I am your host, Joshua Washington, the Executive Director of the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel. And we have a lot to get into today. I want to say welcome. If this is your first time checking us out, we are the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel. You can visit our website. You can go to ibsi.org and check out what we do, our mission, our vision, why we do what we do, all that stuff. You can see there. You can also join our Substack at ibsi.substack.com. Or go to Africa Israel Weekly is what the newsletter is called, and you can check out our articles. We have premium content. We even have podcast episodes, and you can get deeper into what we do, what it is that IPSI is, the messaging that IPSI is putting out there, and the work that we're doing across the country and around the world. Also, if you want to support the work of IPSI, you can become a legacy builder. A legacy builder is someone who gives a monthly amount, something small, something maybe they can't afford to give a large donation, but every month they give something like $18 a month, $36 a month, something like that. And it really does help the flow of IPSI. It keeps IPSI going. Those small dedicated monthly donations are huge. And so you can go to ibsi.org /donate, ibsi.org/donate, and you can become a legacy builder. Another way to support us is by purchasing our merchandise. We have merch. We have coffee mugs. We have T-shirts. We have journals. We have things that you can get that you can actually use and support us at the same time. Okay, I see people are already coming in fast. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Come in, come in, come in. We have a video series called We Are Not the Same that our CEO and founder, Pastor Dumisani Washington, is the host of. And so a few videos have been out already. If you want to check them out, you can go to it's on our page. If you go to our IBSI now on Instagram, all the videos that we have so far are up there. You can check it out. The one that's coming up next is called African Slaves. The one that I think just came out is called How Black Lives Matter was used against the Black community. And so that one is something that, these are, for those of us who've been following us for a long time, that we've talked about these things in depth for long periods of time. As a matter of fact, from BLM's founding, we were talking about it. BLM, IPSI, and then my late wife's organization, DAISY, Defend, Embrace, Invest, and Support Israel from South Africa, all were founded in the same year. And BLM's founding, we have an article in our Substack called One of These Things is Not Like the Other. And BLM's founding, pretty much from the beginning, they had this free Palestine stance, this anti-Israel stance, even though their messaging was that they were very narrowly focused on the Black community and police brutality. They platformed certain talking points that didn't reflect the majority of Black America. And we talked about those things. And we talked about, okay, if you're just focused on the Black community, why are you thousands of miles away in the Middle East? What's the obsession with Israel? How did you hop over slavery in Sudan and slaughtering of Christians in Nigeria and all that stuff and go all the way to Israel? Why? And we talked about that at length. So these videos are more like shorter summations of those things, but they're very powerful and they're hard hitting. And we'd love if you could watch them, share them around, get them going. The one that's coming up after that is called African Slaves. And that's the one that what I was just kind of touching on now. Also, I talked about this last week. The national release of the movie called Bao, Artist at War, Joseph Bao. I talked about it last week. You can learn about it. You can still give to the crowdfunding campaign and support the Joseph Bao Museum. These are really, really good friends of mine who, when I was in Israel in May for the beginning of my tour, for the beginning of my tour, they had me come and visit, and it was beautiful. The museum was beautiful. The story is just so compelling, and you can learn more about it by visiting their website. And you can support them here. You can see in front of me, there's a QR code. You can go to cosmesh.com/JosephBowMuseum. It's beautiful, you guys. Really take some time and check it out. Last announcement for today, returning the favor. Returning the favor. I don't think we have a graphic yet, but an idea I had years ago kind of started off as a joke, and then it turned into something big where, a lot of iconic Christmas music was written by Jewish composers. And so my idea was, the idea that started off as a joke was, at some point as a non-Jew, it'd be cool if I got together with some other non-Jewish composers and wrote some original Hanukkah music. And one last year it was December of 2023. The title just popped into my head. I was like, yeah, we could call it Returning the Favor. And then that just kind of started this whole thing. And so we released a single in 2024. And now this year we're working on a whole album. So we have album release concerts coming up. I just got out of a meeting about our one in Chicago on December the 7th. If you're in Chicago, mark your calendars. We're partnering with the New Beginnings Church, with Pastor Corey Brooks's church out there in Chicago. Some of our sponsors include the Simon Wiesenthal Center, Stand With Us, of course, as always, our good friends, and also the Chicago Bulls. The Chicago Bulls are sponsoring this event. And then we have one also coming up in Los Angeles, and then we're working on one here in Charlotte. So we have 3 big releases coming. So stay tuned to get more information if you want to support it. If you're not in any of those areas, but you want to support these concerts, they're going to be very beautiful. They're going to be very professionally done, professional productions, professional musicians and singers, and even orchestra members. It's going to be such an amazing night. And even if you can't come, we would encourage you to support. And you can support through IPSA. You can give to the donation page on IPSA, and it'll go to that. All right. So now we're going to get into a few things here. We didn't have our forum last week. Shana Tova to everyone who maybe didn't get that message. We are in the High Holy Days, so things are kind of a little bit scattered. Next week we won't have a forum because it will be in the middle of Sukkot. Personally, my family and I will be camping. And I know that people will be traveling and all those things. So, but we are here today, and we have a few things we want to talk about. And I want to start off with Kenya. So sorry, I got distracted. I heard my kids in the background. So Kenya just recently banned the Muslim Brotherhood and Hizb ut-Tahrir, which is another terror group, under the Terrorism Act. So they recently in Kenya banned the Muslim Brotherhood, which is kind of like the umbrella for many terror groups across the Middle East and Africa. Egypt did that a few years ago. And the reason why this is so important, and we posted about it today and on our Instagram, yesterday, is that we're living in a time where leaders, countries are really making these hardline decisions, right? Iran has always backed Hamas and continues to fund Hamas. Qatar continues to shelter Hamas's leaders. And it's like a safe haven when the leaders need to flee. They know they can flee to Qatar. Turkey is openly celebrating all of the things that Hamas is doing. And I say Hamas and Muslim Brotherhood because Hamas is an arm of the Muslim Brotherhood. And with all that going on, Kenya calls it what it is. And we're seeing more and more of that happening in Africa. We haven't talked in depth about it yet, but Ibrahim Traore, who is the leader, the president of Burkina Faso, he's a Muslim. He's a Muslim leader, but he still is vehemently against outside Islamic forces. He sees what's happening in Africa. He's seeing the enslavement of Africans across the continent. He's seeing the terror. He knows the stats that we talk about at IPSI, which is most of terror in the world, the majority of it is on the continent of Africa. Africa is a hotbed for terrorism, and which is largely funded by Iran, which is sheltered by Qatar. Same thing, right? He sees all that. And even though he himself is Muslim, just recently I saw an article that came out that he refused to, there was this proposal to build mosques in this area in Burkina Faso, and he refused, and he said, no, if we're going to be building things, we need to build schools. We need to build schools. We need to build other like things that actually will help our young people. We don't need any more mosques here. And he's been very vocal about that and some other things as well, and including Burkina Faso's own independence. Right? I remember he talked about if our military is funded by another country, then it's not our military. We can't really protect ourselves. We have to have our own military. We have to have our own. We have to have our own self-determination, and that's happening more and more. And so, Kenya, um, you know, with the Prevention of Terrorism order, it takes effect. It took effect immediately. So when it was reported on, it's already done. So Muslim Brotherhood is banned in Kenya, and we continue to monitor and see what else is going to be done. I mean that is a huge step, and I think more young, especially young leaders, are realizing that with all the internal problems that Africa has, there's also many external ones as well. And one of those things is radical Islam, and that has ravaged Africa for a long time. Like I said, you'll see that in the next footage that comes out from our CEO and founder as a part of the series "We Are Not the Same." So you should check that out, and that's African Slavery. That'll be out soon. So that's good. Now, meanwhile, we're seeing certain countries in Africa take a hardline stance against terrorism, against jihadism in their country. While that's going on, the West continues to embrace it. I mean, Muslim Brotherhood has arms all over the place, chapters in the United States, all that kind of stuff. And what we've been seeing from our college campuses to our government are both sympathizers and also like agents of the Muslim Brotherhood in many different ways, from protesting on the streets to legislation. And that's going to continue to happen. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit more as we go further down. But that is there. We do see this dichotomy here where we've been talking about this for the past couple of years now, maybe 2 or 3 years now, about how the West is continuing to lose its mind and descend, while the East, I should say, or like especially places in Africa, are actually rising up. And one of the indicators you see is the response to this. Someone says Kenya is the highest supporter of Israel in the world. Kenyans were against a pro-Pally demo on Sunday last week, on the 13th of August, the anniversary of 2013 Israeli-owned Westage Mall attack, where, yes, 100 plus Kenyans were killed. Israel needs this. It's us. Absolutely. Yeah, there was something, and yeah, the attack on the mall, and there's another attack at a school. I remember this because my late wife and I would talk about this, and this is one of the stories that would make her just cry when she talked about it, because it was a jihadist attack at a college in Kenya, where the jihadis lined the college kids up against the wall and told them to renounce their faith in Jesus. And each of those students said, "No, I will not do it." And they shot them in the head. This was Kenya. Thank you, Garissa University. This is the same Kenya, and our CEO has talked about this before. But when the raid on Entebbe happened in the 70s, Kenya offered to help the rescuing of the hostages that were stuck in Uganda, where Uganda volunteered to step in and help the jihadis hijack this plane. The Kenyan government agreed to help the Israelis get hostages back. And when Idi Amin, they successfully did it. And when Idi Amin found out that it was Kenya that helped Israel get hostages back, he was in such a rage that he had the Kenyan nationals who were living in Uganda slaughtered. Kenya is not foreign to terrorism. Kenya is not a newbie to this. They know what's going on. They see it firsthand. It's easy for us to sit in the West and hypothesize about things, but when you have terror at your front door all the time, when you've seen things, when you've seen people murdered in front of your face, when you have family members who are not here anymore because of that type of terror, when you've seen friends raped and tortured, and when you yourself have been through those things, you tend to have a more realistic view of life, right? So Kenyans, this is coming from a very personal place, and they understand, I think, better than most that we need security, and we know that Israel is the best in counterterrorism, and they can help us. And so, yeah, so we're continuing to watch and monitor and pray, all those things. But this is the good step. This continues to be a step in the right direction. And we pray that that Kenya continues to rise up, as well as the rest of Africa. All right, so this happened last week, but we weren't able to meet last week, so I need to talk about this. But Al Julani, the new president of Syria, he was given the red carpet treatment in New York. He was issued a travel visa, and he was visiting here. Al Julani, who, if you know, he's a new president of Syria. I can't even say former Al Qaeda, because he never renounced or anything having to do with renouncing Al Qaeda. He still operates Al Qaeda cells across the globe and in Syria. And he was responsible just recently for the slaughtering of Christians and Druze in Syria. Okay, so this is not a man who has the only difference between him now and him then is that he wears a suit now. That's it. Imagine Osama bin Laden being issued a travel visa and invited to New York to speak with our president wearing a suit. That's all it is. This man is a ruthless killer. He is a butcher of Christians, a butcher of Druze, and he has the same goals of annihilating the Jewish state and dismantling the West as most of the other leaders in that region have. And he was given the red carpet treatment here in the U.S. just a couple weeks ago. Lisa says it's ironic the world criticizes Israel for crimes they haven't done. The Muslims have killed hundreds of thousands of innocent Christians, and the silence is deafening. How do we support the Christians of Africa? Absolutely. Well, the first thing that you can do, Lisa, and this is something that cannot be overstated. I know people say it a lot, but the first thing that you can do, besides pray, obviously, is tell the truth. There's so much. We have been lulled into fear, by and large. I wrote an article that I'm going to talk about, actually, because I had it here on our agenda. I penned an article last year called Psychological Compromise. And the article is both a personal story and like an account of what actually happened, right? And it talks about 9/11, what happened on September 11, 2001. I was 10 years old, but looking through the lens of a kid, there were still things that just bothered me, and I didn't know why. And one of the things that bothered me was that a lot of the messaging seemed, at least to me, in our culture and shows and all that, was centered around, let's not be mean to our Muslim brothers and sisters, which I agreed with. I like even my personality really gravitated toward that message of, just because someone in this group does something evil doesn't mean you go against everyone. There are really great people. So that was fine. But it was to the point where I didn't know what the word gaslighting was at the time. But there was just this thing I didn't like, where if someone would say something like, yeah, I'm still afraid to get on a plane. If I'm boarding a plane and I see someone who looks like they're Arab or looks like they're Muslim, I get afraid. Oh, you're a bigot. I don't think Islamophobe was coined yet, or maybe it was, but it wasn't big yet. You're a bigot. You're da 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 da. And people would get shamed and embarrassed and made fun of and all that stuff. And even as a kid, I was like, I don't know, why is that? That doesn't seem right to me. I'm not saying we're supposed to judge Muslim people. What I'm saying is, they're just saying I have a real fear. If 9/11 was done by skinheads, then the same thing. People would be nervous if they saw bald white men getting on the plane. It wasn't about the fact that they were Muslim. It was the fact that someone belonging to their religion did this. And so I'm a little bit afraid to die. I mean, it's right. I'm not going to now ignore this feeling. This really tragic thing happened, and I don't have any answers, and no one's really giving me answers, really. And I feel like we're not being told the whole truth and all that stuff. And when is the next one going to happen? Because remember, it wasn't just the Twin Towers. The Pentagon was like, there was a lot of areas that were hit, and there was such confusion. I remember waking up. I woke up after the first tower was hit, And my parents were kind of like, yeah, it was an accident. We're not sure what it was. And da-da-da. And I remember watching the second plane hit the second tower. And my mom said, we're under attack. We're under attack. It was such, even for me as a 10-year-old, this was just less than 2 weeks before my 11th birthday. It was such a visceral thing. Like I'd never seen my parents, especially my mom, freak out like that before. You know, because for everyone's like, wow, oh my gosh, so many people are dying. What's going on? And then it was, holy crap, this is intentional. What's going on? And then we found out about the Pentagon. It was such a visceral thing. And so to shame people for even feeling that way, like you shouldn't, if you're afraid to get on a plane because you see someone Muslim, then you're a racist. It's like, or I have a memory and I have eyes and I'm a human being who has, there's a thing called a trauma response. Maybe it's not about them being Muslim, but it's about just the fact that these people did it. Like I said, it could be any group. It could have been a group of Mexicans, Black people, white people, whatever, but someone belonging to some group doing something, it makes you look at that group a little bit sideways. It happens. And instead of shaming people, but then as I got older, I realized that the shaming was on purpose. It was a tactic. One of the things that happened, I wasn't going to talk about all this, but this is Lisa, this is your fault. So I'm talking about this now. One of the things that happened, 6 days, not even a week, 6 days after 9/11. So what, September the 17th, 2001, is that President George Bush gave a speech at the Islamic Center in DC to talk about how Islam is a religion of peace. And, we really need to, we shouldn't do this. We shouldn't put this on all Muslims. Okay, fine. That's a fine speech. I get it. There are still people who are alive under the rubble who haven't even been rescued yet, right? There are still people whose bodies aren't even cold in the ground while you're up here going, now, everyone, Islam's a religion of peace. And standing behind him was the head of CARE, the head of the Council on Arab Islamic Relations. Nihad Awad. Nihad Awad is his name. I'm surprised I remember all this because I wasn't going to talk about this. Nihad Awad was the head of CARE then, standing right behind George Bush while he was making this speech. Nihad Awad also, after October 7th, 2023, where hundreds of over 1,000 Israelis were slaughtered, raped, tortured, and a few hundred were kidnapped. Also foreign nationals as well. Nihad Awad, on his platform from CARE, celebrates what happens on October 7th and says that it's a glorious day. Like he was happy about it. Just blatantly, just brazenly. Same Nihad Awad, right? Same guy who was standing behind George Bush on 9/11 while George Bush told everyone how wonderful Islam was after Islam just destroyed the Twin Towers and killed thousands of Americans. Same guy who was celebrating what happened in Israel on October 7th, which was Israel's 9/11, even proportionally. More so even. So that's when I started to see, even before October 7th, but that really solidified it for me that the psychological compromise was a tactic, and it largely succeeded. I was citing another story about the San Bernardino shooting. Remember that Muslim couple that shot up, I think it was a hotel or something in San Bernardino. And some people were being interviewed about it. And one of the people, a couple of the people were being interviewed. A neighbor of theirs who said, yeah, they were getting like packages every day, like dozens of packages, and just if something seemed off, but I didn't want to say anything. The UPS or FedEx guy, whoever the mail carrier guy was, like, I was delivering so many packages to their house every day. I mean, it was unreal how many boxes they ordered a day. It was so strange, but I didn't want to say anything. I didn't want to say anything. Why? Because the couple was Muslim, and they didn't want to risk being wrong and being called an Islamophobe, bigot, whatever. So they just left it alone. They didn't want the crap storm on their hands. They didn't want the bad publicity or whatever. And so turns out both of their suspicions were correct, because that couple was ordering all kinds of stuff to go and shoot up this other place in San Bernardino. That's what happened. So that was, as my father would say, a slow moving, a train wreck in slow motion, right? This was something that could have been avoided, but the people who saw what was going on, they didn't trust the evidence of their own eyes. They didn't want to talk about it. They didn't want to call attention to it. They didn't want to be seen in a certain way. That's the psychological compromise. And that is what I mean by why there's so much silence around Christians being slaughtered across the globe. There are still beautiful, amazing organizations that call attention to this, that combat this. We used to, I think I still get from letters from Voice of the Martyrs. There's Free Nigerian Slaves. There's I Abolish. There's African Jewish Alliance. There's all these different organizations. But why culturally has this not been latched onto? I think two reasons. One, the Western church has largely fallen asleep. We don't really like to deal with that stuff. We deal with, it's all about your personal growth and health, wealth, and money and whatever else. Disproportionately, right? We don't talk about anything else going on, because the Bible says for Christians, if you're a Christian watching this, in Hebrews 13:3, that we are to pray for those who are in chains as if we were bound with them, right? And praying, as we pray, if you sincerely, as you pray for anything, the Lord will give you strategy and wisdom, right, to move forward, how to do this, whether it's writing letters, whether it's joining an organization, whether it's using your platform, if you have a big platform, to speak out on these things. But part of the reason why, and I'd never really seen this until these past couple of years, when I would post just about, not even about Israel, just posting about, like, there's a video that's been recirculating about the Nigerian church that was destroyed by Boko Haram, and there's a pastor there and there's a congregation in the rubble worshiping on top of it. And I posted that last year. Didn't talk about Israel, nothing. Talked about radical Islam in Nigeria, right? There's a real genocide going on. There's a real genocide going on in Nigeria. I just have to say that. The Christian population in Nigeria is now smaller than the Muslim population. That has never happened before. That is what a genocide is. Their numbers are dwindling. Thousands are slaughtered every year. And I posted about this, and it started to go viral. And then when it goes viral, you get the trolls. But then what happened was, the trolls that would get on the comments would say things like, "This is fake. This is not Islam. You're just saying this to cast, to get people to hate Muslims. By the way, the Quran is against burning down holy sites." I went, okay, then someone should tell them that, because they're doing it as we speak. I mean, why? So they would come after me, and I hadn't really seen that before, or they would try to make it about Israel. Someone even commented and said that those Christians in Nigeria deserved it because most Africans are Zionist. And so if they're Zionists, and they, I feel no pain, I feel no shame or sympathy for them. That's what they were saying, which they weren't telling a lie, that like most Africans are Zionists. It's just in their core. But to say they deserved it, and this is the sentiment. And so people who speak out about it a little bit, I've been seeing more influencers speak out about Nigeria. I think it's just because somehow it became acceptable for now to speak about Nigeria. I don't know why. I've seen a few bigger accounts talk about it, which fine. I'm just glad people are talking about it. It's just that they're talking about it as if all of a sudden Nigeria is on fire right now. Nigeria's been on fire for years now. Christians have been crying out from Nigeria for years now. So I'm not sure why it's now starting to gain some sort of traction. I don't know if it's real traction or just ephemeral, right? If it's just kind of transient traction, it's not real, and it's just because whatever, it's acceptable for now to do it. But yeah, Nigeria's been like that for a while. So the first thing you can do is say is tell the truth. You have to not be afraid to tell the truth. And you really have to just shake off this whole, what are people going to think about you and say about you? Because time always bears witness to the truth. You might lose friends. You might not be invited to certain. I was just talking to a friend of mine yesterday about being an artist and being a Zionist, being an artist and being in the space where I know that there are rooms that I have not been invited into because of my views, my stance, right? And because sometimes people just straight up tell me, and sometimes I just kind of have to figure it out. I know that there are some things in my career I'd probably be further along in my music career if I just kind of ignored that stuff and did the music. But I can't. And so it's just what I've accepted. And I'm trusting that the right doors will continue to open, and I'll have success in other ways, which is happening. But we have to divorce ourselves from this need to be accepted. And I'm not saying we have to turn into jerks, but we just have to tell the truth. We have to tell the truth. We have to tell the truth about who's doing it, who's it being done to, and who's responsible. That's it. That's absolutely it. We have to do that. Because Israel's enemies are Africa's enemies. The same mindset. We talk about the Muslim Brotherhood. Hamas is the arm of the Muslim Brotherhood. There are a lot of terror groups that are arms of the Muslim Brotherhood that operate all over Africa, and are sponsored by Qatar, that are supported by Iran, that are enslaving Sudanese in Sudan, Sudanese Christians and Muslims, that are enslaving mainly women as sex slaves in Mauritania, right? That are enslaving Africans in Algeria. And if we're too afraid to say it's Islam, if we're too afraid to say that like who the enslavers are, we're not that much better than the people who are lying about it and saying it doesn't exist. Africa's enemies are Israel's enemies. I shared the footage from before, and I might post it again. This one also went viral, of the Tanzanian student, Joshua Malito Malel. He was in Israel to study agriculture. His goal was to learn, take it home to his family, and start a business. Israel has many, many programs where they train people from all over the world, especially Africa, in agriculture and technology, sometimes even counterterrorism, and with no strings attached. They don't train them in these things and then say, okay, now what you're going to have to do from your country. They let them go back home. Their hope is when you go home, you can make your country a better place, right? Here's how we were able to produce water from the desert. Here's how we were able to grow these succulent fruits and things that aren't even supposed to grow in Israel. Things that aren't even supposed to grow in that region of the world. Here's how we got them to grow here. Here's how we became one of the main exporters in the world. This is what we do. Here's how we did it. And now you know it. Now take it home to your country. So Joshua was taking advantage of that. We've taken our ambassadors to these exact places up in the north, a lot of which is probably destroyed now because of Lebanon. Of just they train the people going to 1-2 year internships or apprenticeships, if you will, where they learn how to till the land and really do this agriculture on a high level, and they send them back home. Some of these are paid, like we pay to do all this stuff, and then you can take it back home to your country. And so Joshua was there. He was 19 years old. He was there for that. Young entrepreneur, had aspirations and everything. Not only was he slaughtered by Hamas on October 7th, it was on purpose. They saw him. They saw a Black African boy, and they taunted him and tortured him before they decided to finally kill him. And then once they killed him, while he laid there dead on the ground, they shot him in the face several times. There is a deep, deep, cancerous hatred for the Black African, for the Black period, for the Black person, deep within Islam. I shared a video, and I should have put it up on here. Maybe we'll share it in one of the clips that we share after this, or maybe I'll do it on our next forum, of imams preaching the justification of slavery, the justification of modern day slavery of Africans. I'm not talking about, let's talk about what it actually meant in the Bible. I'm talking about today. Today, it's okay. And that's not just, in Arab Islam. We talked about this in some of our groups with our pastors. We talked about how when our partners, some of our, like Charles Jacobs, in the 90s, brought the slavery happening in Sudan to Louis Farrakhan himself directly at a press conference. Louis Farrakhan pointed in his face and said, if you think that there's slavery in Sudan, you go over there and you tell him. His whole thing was, there's no slavery in Sudan. So then our friend Charles and a news group, the Boston Globe, they went to Sudan and documented it themselves. Brought back all the receipts, had never heard from Farrakhan since, except that the only other thing Farrakhan has ever said about slavery was that to other Nation of Islam members is that it's okay because those are dark people. They don't enslave people who look like us. By us, I mean light-skinned people, because Louis Farrakhan is very light-skinned. They're enslaving the darker ones, and that's fine. That was his. So not only first he lied about it happening, and then he said it's fine because they're super Black, right? We're fair skinned. They wouldn't enslave people like us. They enslave them. That's been the response, and that has been echoed across. That's not just Farrakhan in its own little silo. That is a very deep-seated belief in Islam. And anyone who's offended by that, please, I would love for you to send to me anyone who's a member of Islam, any Muslim who is of note, right, of stature, who calls this out. Because we have tons of footage of imams preaching in their mosques, mosques and influencers, Muslim influencers, who are justifying the enslavement of Africans today. And so that's the culture. And so that's the culture that tortured and murdered Joshua Malito Malal and Felix Matenga. We didn't get Felix's murder on camera, but we got Joshua's murder on camera. It was done we have it on camera because Hamas filmed themselves. They GoPro themselves doing this. We have to be honest about it all. And I'm even talking to those in the pro-Israel space. We have to be honest about it all. Part of the reason why we keep being caught with our tail between our legs is because we don't speak the truth when we're supposed to speak it. We wait until it becomes a little bit more acceptable, and then we hop on it. I remember, this is kind of a gruesome joke, but I remember watching a Dave Chappelle stand-up a long time ago, and he talked about a homeless man. He was on a bus. There's a homeless man on the bus, and the homeless man started doing something very unseemly. Okay, you can just fill in the blank. Took his bottoms off, started doing something very unseemly, and everyone just kind of act like they didn't see anything. And we're just kind of like, didn't want. And Dave said, I was sitting there really bothered. He was right next to me. And so Dave said, I looked at the man and very calmly, I said, hey, brother, can you like not do that here, please? Like, can you not do that, please? And he said, right as he did that, it's like everyone on the bus just got this courage. And everyone, yeah, put that thing away right now. But yeah, mister, you. And what happened, and now he's telling a joke, right? But what happened was the guy, he didn't do what they were telling him to do. He actually got he freaked out, and then other stuff happened, and it was a big mess, right? But when he told that joke, I think about that. I think about this is that when things are happening. So when Black Lives Matter first came onto the scene in 2013, one of their very early protests was from Ferguson to Palestine. That was in 2014 after Mike Brown's killing. And Ipsy then said, okay, this is a game. First of all, they're doing this and this. They're doing things that don't represent most of the Black community. And now they're all the way in Israel for some reason. This is a game from the start. It's fake and it's phony, and we should not support it. We got attacked from people on our side. We didn't get attacked from BLM people because all we were saying was what we were saying, this is what they're saying. They're saying it was an apartheid state. They're saying they're not concerned about anything except for police brutality. And then they somehow find a way to connect it to Israel. Yeah, the deadly exchange, all that stuff. They weren't coming at us for that. They were like, yeah, that is what we're saying. It was people in the Zionist camp. No. We have to know. Listen. It's not our turn. We need to and in effect, infantilizing the Black community. First of all, their views don't represent the vast majority of Black Americans. Walk into any barbershop, go to any church, and you'll see for yourself. And we also have statistics. Secondly, they are calling for the destruction of the Jewish state of Israel, right? That's part of their platform. Yeah, but you guys are just, we had someone who messaged us on Facebook and said, I just want to do something for the Black community. Can you please, and this obviously was not a Black person, and can you please give me resources? Can you help me? And so we responded through direct messaging. Yeah, here's a couple ways you can support. We have this, we're partners with Pastor Corey Brooks and Project Hood. We're partners with Dr. Robert Woodson in the Woodson Center. You can give to those organizations. They do incredible work for especially young Black men, Black teens, but men and women alike. And you can support them. And I kid you not, I find it again because I still have it saved. The lady responds and says, no. I want to march. Like, where can I go march? I went, phew. So then responded and said, well, I don't know of any like marches that are happening, but if you want to do something that actually will make a difference, we'd recommend that you utilize the references that we gave you. And she said something else about Black Lives Matter. And we said, yeah, Black Lives Matter does not represent the Black community for the reasons that I've been sharing with you guys. And then she, kid you not, said, I didn't know this was a right-wing organization. And she just leaves. It's like, so that was the sentiment through that whole period. Now, 2021 war happened. BLM showed its true colors more. But especially after October 7th, one of the things that happened at the Nova Festival was that paragliders glided in and shot a bunch of people who were running, killed a bunch of people, right? They took footage of that. The Black Lives Matter Chicago chapter post a graphic of the paragliders and said, "I stand with Palestine." The paragliders, we're not just posting the Palestinian flag or posting. No. We are going to erect a symbol that directly represents. This was like a few days after October 7th. That directly represents the murderers who paraglided into a music festival and shot up and killed a bunch of young kids, and said, "Yeah, we support that." Period. Point blank. That's it. That's all. That's what we do. Then everyone clutches their pearls, and now no one has a problem talking about how Black Lives Matter is full of crap. Okay, that's great, but where were you when at the beginning, when it wasn't popular, right? When it was more uncomfortable? We have to speak the truth when we're supposed to speak the truth, not just when we feel like it. Otherwise, we're going to continue to be caught with our tail between our legs, right? We're going to be caught with our pants down all the time. Same thing with radical Islam, guys. We can't. We spent too many years cowering in fear of being disliked and being ostracized, and now the stakes are much higher. So to answer your question, Lisa, you can never underestimate the power of telling the truth. Telling the truth. Okay. If you're listening, if you're just tuning in, this is the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel, our forum on Israel, Africa, and Black America. We do this every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern. It's a little bit disjointed right now because of the High Holy Day, so we won't be here next week, but the week after Sukkot, we'll be back here again. My name is Joshua Washington, the Executive Director of Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel, and we just got through talking about a few different things. I wanted to talk a little bit about this, but I think I'm going to shift things just a little bit just because of what we've been talking about here. But there's this all-out sprint here in the wake of Charlie Kirk's death. What we've been noticing, we wrote about it, both a demonization of him and a lying about his position on Israel. And the thing that's kind of exacerbating all of it, which is the lionization of him and the ignoring of the problematic things that he did say concerning Israel. Again, telling the truth. No one wants to tell the complete truth because of emotions, and I get it. But if we're in the business of speaking truth, we have to speak the truth, even when we don't like it and it hurts us. So, people like Tucker Carlson, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and of course, especially Candace Owens, they are trying to paint Charlie Kirk as this. As someone who never supported Israel. And if he did say anything publicly, he was strong-armed by Bibi and the Israeli government, all that stuff, when all of his public, or I should say most of his public speeches and debates even on Israel speak to the contrary. This guy was debating in Oxford, I think it was Oxford University, at the highest level with these college students about Israel. This guy was like on college campuses, and one of the many topics that would come up would be Israel all the time. If you were to say that he hated Israel and stuff, it's just a lie. But they're trying to repaint it. So Marjorie Taylor Greene posted a tweet the other day saying that Charlie invited me to speak at the AmFest, the TPUSA America Fest, after I made comments about Israel committing genocide and Bibi being this, that, and the other, and blah blah blah. And her whole thing was that because Charlie did this, that he somehow was supportive of what she was saying about Israel. And then she goes into this whole rant about he was a martyr. When you see people say that Charlie Kirk was a martyr for Jesus, I want you to understand that even though some of your understanding of that might be different, what they are saying is that Jews killed Charlie Kirk. That's what they're trying to say. People keep trying to paint the picture that somehow Israel was responsible, either overtly or covertly. And it feels lockstep. You have people like Megyn Kelly who are just pretending to be objective while they like repost Candace Owens on her just unhinged rants about Jews. And Megyn just kind of sits there like she, like Candace is like a legitimate voice in this space when she has proven herself to be a a female version of Louis Farrakhan. I mean, that's all she is right now. You have Tucker Carlson, who says things like, oh, people sitting around eating hummus and trying to figure out what to do with Jesus and killing him, implying that those same people sitting around eating hummus are trying to figure out what to do with Charlie Kirk. Like, you have people who subversively say it, and then you have those people who seem more legitimate, platforming those who are way off base, right? Who are way unhinged. And it's like they're working in tandem to build this narrative that somehow, for some odd reason, Israel killed Charlie. And I said this before, there's way more blatant evidence that would point to the fact that it was a plot from Qatar, the Qatari government, or Muslims. Why? Because Charlie spent a lot of his time, especially this past year, directly talking about Islam, like we've been talking about, how it's not compatible with the West. He talking about Sharia law, talking about what radical Islam actually does and how it treats women and all that stuff. Like, he actually spent a lot of time denigrating, rightfully so, Islam, radical Islam. So if you're going to try to twist into a pretzel to say that somehow he made Israel mad and they killed him, and you're not even going to address or touch Qatar or Iran, it further looks like you are in cahoots with Qatar. It further looks like, Tucker Carlson, that you are getting paid by Qatar to say the things you're saying. By saying, I don't know what an ally is when it comes to Israel, but then saying that Qatar is our closest ally ever. What? To platform someone who believes that the Holocaust didn't happen, and to have him on your show and to sit there and act like he's really saying some deep stuff and go, oh yeah, come on now. And then just recently with Candace, I don't know if we have this Instagram clip ready, because I see it here, but I didn't link it. Candace has Harvey Weinstein on her show recently from jail, from prison. And she's interviewing him and asking him, whose feathers did he ruffle in Hollywood? Like, who is it that you had to? And he said, well, I can't really say exactly. I don't know for sure, because there's, established. Yeah, but I mean, come on, but you can just shoot. And it's like blatant. She's goading him on. You can check it out. Yeah, you could just say, like, you could just say who you think it is. I mean, what group of people? What, like, what is it? What? He was like, well, I don't really know. Yeah, but I mean, come on, you have a guess. I mean, you've been in this industry, So then he said, well, you sold all your stuff, right? Who'd you sell your stuff? Who'd you sell your films to? Like, who? Well, I mean, one of the groups we sold to is the such and such group, which is owned by the Qatari government. And we sold such and such, which is actually also Qatar. And yeah, so those are the people who bought my stuff. And then it got quiet like this. And she would, okay, interesting. Okay, well, and then she moves on from there. So she has not been secretive about her feelings toward Jews. Is trying to get this man to say that the Jews did this to me, even though he's Jewish himself. The Jews did this and the Jews did that. And he didn't want to say anything. And she kept prodding and prodding and prodding until eventually he said, well, I mean, the people who buy my stuff, or, these are owned by Qatar. She brought him to her show, right? This was not like some sort of plant. She decided to have him on because she thought she was going to slam dunk. And this guy was going to say, oh, there's the Jews in Hollywood. It's like, wasn't, if you really want to know. That reeks of one of two things, or both. Just the evil demonic spirit of Jew hatred. It also reeks of money. Some of these people Qatar has billions of dollars that is dedicated just to propaganda. They fund our textbooks and our universities. They have influencers, young, attractive influencers all over the world who go and do the free Palestine thing. They have lots of money behind what they're doing. They have no shortage of cash. They have bought a lot of our politicians, left and right. People don't want to see that our President Trump is in trouble right now, and with how he's been capitulating to Qatar, but he is. His administration is. They have people on both ends in their pocket. And anyone who doesn't even address it a little bit, even when it's staring them right in the face, you got to question their actual allegiances. They want to call people who who are pro-Israel foreign agents, even though pro-Israel Americans, their main, especially the lobbyists, they're advocating for a strong relationship with our ally. That's not a foreign thing to do. But then you see people, again, like Tucker talking about how Qatar is so great and amazing and our greatest ally, and then completely ignoring the slave trade that they finance, completely ignoring the billions that go into dismantling the West and our values. There's something fishy going on, you guys. And even if you don't have all the answers, you can still point to the what. And I remember sometimes seeing my dad in real time have these conversations with friends, right? Debates. And he'll say, this is what Trump did, this is what Trump did, blah, blah, blah. And they'll say, why would he do something like that? And I remember my dad, like, I'm waiting for him to answer. And immediately he'd say, I don't care. That's not I can't answer that for you. And I don't need to. I'm telling you the what. I'm telling you what's happening. Well, maybe he's doing it because you can surmise all you want. I'm telling you what he's been doing for the past 3 months. If this was Obama, those same people would be in a conniption fit. They would have pooped their pants. They went all over the internet. Obama, he's a Muslim. Da, 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 da. Okay, so now the same, like my dad, our CEO talked about this. What President Obama did to Nigeria is what Trump did and is doing to Syria right now. How it's on fire and how it's being dismantled. How Trump is speaking well and propping up Al Julani. President Barack Obama meddled in the Nigerian elections. This was all Nigerian media and some here, like proof, evidence, videos that he sent and everything that was campaigning for Buhari, who wound up butchering a lot of the Igbo and the Christians in Nigeria. The people on the right didn't have a problem calling that out. We called it out because we call it out. Now we see that a very similar thing is happening to Syria under Trump, and those same people want to keep quiet because Trump. See, it doesn't work that way. You don't get to be quiet now because it's your guy in office. That's not how that works. Truth is truth, and our commitment has to be to the truth, you guys, as much as humanly possible. Okay, so I'm gonna take a pause here and say hello again. Thank you for hopping in here, you guys. We've been a little bit irregular with our forums, and we just kind of started back up again, but now we're in the high holy days, like I said. Again, I said this last time I was on, but I'll say it again. I want to thank you for your prayers and your support for this. It's been a weird year for a lot of people as well. With the loss of my wife about 8 months ago, she used to be my co-host. So for those who've been watching us for over a year, you'll know that she used to be either sitting right next to me or on a separate screen just in the next room of the house. And so there's still a lot of adjustments our family are making and a lot of transitions that are being made right now with me and the kids. And I appreciate you all for your love and support. Yeah, we appreciate it. Rhonda, I do see your comment. The Jewish people I know who appreciate Trump are not above criticizing him as well for all the reasons you mentioned. He is not perfect, but in the arena of he's all we have, but not to where we don't ever stop looking at this with clarity. Yeah, I mean, I still posit, especially in terms of foreign policy and Israel and everything, that he was the far better option than Kamala Harris. I mean, the Biden administration was very abysmal when it came to the Middle East, undoing a lot of what happened in the Abraham Accords and just all that stuff, right? So absolutely. But we cannot take the fact that because the Trump presidency is better than what the Kamala presidency would have been in terms of foreign policy as a reason to not say anything about what is wrong, because it's getting wrong really fast and more wrong as we go. Anyway, so again, thank you guys for all of that. I want you to mark your calendar. So not this coming Monday, but the Monday after next, we'll be back. Again, if you want to follow up on our huge Hanukkah premiere concerts, you can just subscribe to ibsi.org/dates. You can see where we're going to be. If we're only going to be in 3 places. So if you're not in any of those 3 places, but you still want to support, go and donate to IPSI. I'll make sure that we add a category for Returning the Favor. That's what the Hanukkah concerts are called. That's what the album is called, Returning the Favor. And, in a few weeks' time, as we get closer, I'll share with you the music video that we did last year. the single we put out, We Remember. Yeah, you can help support that as we go. It's a very big bridge building concert where we're teaching the story of Hanukkah. And it'll be a mixed crowd. It'll be a mixed crowd on stage and off the stage of Jews and Christians and whoever else is coming alike. And we'll be telling the Hanukkah story in the form of little snippets of speaking, very small, but mostly music that kind of carries the story forward. And we're very excited to do that. And I want to shout out to Randy Sandoli, who's a jazz composer and arranger. His music, the one you hear, the theme song of these, the intro and outro music of these forums is a song by him. He wrote called The First 7 Miles. And he's a co-producer on this Hanukkah album. He's the one, I wasn't sure if I was really going to do any projects at all after my wife passed. And he was the one who very gently reached out to me and said, hey man, like, I just want, like, I do think we need to do this project. I know that you're going through a lot right now, but just think about it and pray about it and get back to me. And I'm really glad he did that because it needed to be done. And we wound up recording the songs. And in a couple of weeks, I get into the studio, me and him get into the studio with our kids choir to put the kids choir on some of the other tracks on the album. It's a beautiful album. And I can't wait to share it with you all. Okay. All right, you all. We have other events coming up. You can check it out on our website. You subscribe to our Substack, become a paid subscriber, donate to IPSI, help us become a legacy. As a matter of fact, right now, as you're listening to this, go to ibsi.org/donate and become a legacy builder. Set up, I'm going to challenge you, $18 a month at least. Let's do multiples of 18, 36, 54, 72, 90. Okay, pick one and make that monthly. If there's a QR code somewhere, let's put it up. But if not, go to ibsi.org/donate and become a legacy builder right now. I'm just going to give you like 15 seconds to do that. Beep, 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 beep. Okay, if you haven't done it yet, if you're on it, you're still working on it, please do that and know that you're continuing to help us to strengthen the ties between Israel, Africa, and Black America through education, advocacy, and community engagement. Thank you all so much. I hope to see you guys next time, same place. You guys have a good rest of your week. Shana Tova, and have a good high holy days, you guys.